not afraid to say the C word. Coal, coal, coal.
Really, renewable energy are the dull bludgers of the energy system. They're not on all the time. They just turn up to work when they want to.
The only plan on the table right now to move our country towards zero emission is that of the Labor Party, and it will be regional Australia and our industries that take the hit for that.
The story of the Nationals and the influence they have exerted on climate change policy, specifically measures to limit emissions, has been going on so long now it feels as old as Methuselah. Once again, the junior coalition partner seems to be calling the shots.
A plan will come to the Nationals party room on Sunday.
But what we are now witnessing is something above and beyond what has occurred in the past. The quite open collapse of the authority of the Prime Minister and the leader of the Nationals over the fate of a policy, indeed the direction of the government. Consider what is happening this week. Today, Federal Cabinet met to assess a technology-based roadmap which will offer incentives and hyper-incentives to sectors from resources to agriculture to achieve emissions reductions. But the government is keen to make sure everyone knows that Cabinet is not actually going to make a decision about whether it will adopt this roadmap. Instead, that decision will effectively be outsourced to the Nationals party room at the weekend. And not even the Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce is in control.
The worst thing I could do for anybody, for Mr Morrison, the Prime Minister, for anybody, is to start saying, oh, well, Horatio Joyce have now determined that this is the direction the Nationals are going, because I'll just get a size 9 up my backside if I do that, so I'm not going to do it.
In the meantime, Cabinet ministers have been going rogue. Last week, Resources Minister Keith Pitt, in echoes of his Whitlam government predecessor Rex Connor, floated the idea of a $250 billion government underwriting scheme for resources projects, which both commercial and central banks increasingly view as potential stranded assets.
You're not a backbencher like George Christensen or Matt Canavan. You're the Resources Minister. Presumably, when ministers speak on issues like this, it's generally policy. Is this government policy?
No, it is not. However, what it is, as Australia's Resources Minister, well, I strongly support our sector, and I'm looking to do things which will ensure the sector remains strong into the future.
This wasn't just a fanciful idea, but a direct rebuttal to this warning from Treasurer Josh Frydenberg.
We cannot run the risks that markets falsely assume that we are not transitioning in line with the rest of the world. It would increase the cost of capital and reduce its availability.
But wait, there's more. The Prime Minister is not planning to legislate a net zero target if he manages to get support for one out of the Nationals party room. Legislating a target or even a projection for emissions reduction in 2030 would mean having a vote in Parliament. That is just too risky and would give even more power to the Nationals, who could threaten to cross the floor to vote against the government. So what is it exactly the Nats are trying to achieve? The current subject of warfare is the phrase net zero by 2050. While the Nats argue about this target, the rest of the world, and notably many of the interest groups the Nats purport to represent, have moved on.
The National Farmers Federation are on board. Meat and Livestock Australia is on board. Are you in danger of being left behind, Keith?
The NFF has a lot of caveats around their proposal, and I can guarantee you all their members don't agree with that position.
It's not just the agricultural lobby that's moved since the last election. The Business Council and the Minerals Council have now also committed to net zero by 2050. News Corp, having led the climate wars in the media for a decade, has also done an about turn.
I've got to get to a meeting. So.
The Nationals' position now seems linked to a broader portrayal of themselves as victims of decisions of their own government.
We've been here before, Fran. We've had all these promises before on water policy, on telecommunications, on sovereign manufacturing, on forestry. And I tell you what, the lived experience out there in the regions isn't what was promised prior to those decisions being made.
In the looming debate, modelling commissioned by the government will acknowledge the inevitable decline of fossil fuels and the need to adapt to that, but frame that as an outcome of decisions taken overseas, not by the Australian government. Once again, apparently none of it is being driven by the government but outside forces. voters could be forgiven for wondering just who is running the joint.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.